We've treated Cam like we have everybody else. At the end of the day, we want them to all know we want them back if this is where they want to be. At the same time, we want what's best for each player. I think Coach Diaz has made that clear. He gathers all the information that we can get from the NFL and gives that information to our guys. And every situation is different. Every kid's different. I don't think just because you're a running back, you should say you should go. You should go when it's the right time for you to go. And every kid, that'll be different. Cam's no different. We want what's best for Cam. And if it's to go and this is the best time and the best opportunity for him, then we'll fully support him. And if he chooses to come back, we'll fully support that as well. It's a great question. I mean, absolutely. You don't become a really good defense like they've been this year and then just all of a sudden change who you are. They're just like us. They've got some guys they've had all year that won't be playing. It's just kind of the nature of 2020. You get to bowl games and certain guys have opportunities and they choose to opt out, or maybe certain guys get injured. And, both, I know the Oklahoma State staff and our staff, we're going to coach the guys we have the best we can. You don't play 10 games and hold 5 teams under 20 points and be top 10 in the country, in negative plays and sacks and number 3 and third down defense, which is a staggering number of 26%. And then all of a sudden do something different. I'm sure like anybody else, they'll game plan for us. They'll have wrinkles. They'll have things they try to do to stop us. And just that's the same thing it is every week. But who they are is they do play a lot of tight coverage. They're really aggressive. They try to, make you earn everything. And I think that's why they've been really successful all year defensively. We feel really good about all our freshmen. And I think sometimes unrealistic expectations are put on freshmen. Sometimes maybe when you have a bad game at one position or something, everybody just screams for the freshmen. And that's just not really fair to the freshmen or the older guys, to be honest with you. We think they're all got bright futures. We think Don and Jalen are going to be really good running backs here. They've already done a lot of really good things. I think for Jalen, there was some up and down moments, and obviously the injury late in the year kind of slowed him down. I think Don, same thing, had a couple minor injuries throughout the year, had some personal things go on, nothing bad, just things that make it hard for any freshman, much less in the environment this year's been played. But they've pushed through. They've both done some really good things. And we think their future's bright. The freshman receivers, same thing, whether it be, being unavailable for certain games due to just the pandemic we're in, whether it be the fact that, 3 or 4 games in, we kind of had the older guys step up and just at the end of the day, they were the guys playing the best. That's just the truth. And so, we want to play more guys down in the future. I think we'll be able to. We'll be able to grow and develop our depth the longer we're here. But we feel really good about guys like Xavier Restrepo and Keyshawn Smith and Mike Redding and some of those freshmen too at the receiver position. It's just I think they're still true freshmen. And then when you factor in it's a pandemic, it wasn't a normal offseason. The guys that did come mid-year didn't have a normal spring practice. I just don't think it's been an unusual year for those guys at all. Most of the time freshmen don't have a major impact, but they have provided depth and at times made plays, and I think you'll see them get better in the future. I think the thing from Mike, I just think Mike's really just, it's weird to say grown up for an older guy, but just really grown up and matured. And not only from when we first got here in the spring, but even just from game 1 till now, he's really taken on the leadership role in that room. And I don't mean by catches. I mean by being the leader and holding guys accountable and being that vocal guy that keeps those younger guys we just were talking about kind of in line when maybe sometimes you hit that freshman wall or you can lose focus and really holds himself to a high standard, holds the older guys like D and Pope and those guys to a high standard too. And has just really helped Coach Likens in that process of creating a culture of accountability in that room. We're not where we want to be there or anywhere on offense, to be honest with you. But when you look at where our receivers were game 1 to where they've come at the end of the year, I think Mike and just how he's grown and developed in his leadership, both by example, but both vocally and keeping guys accountable and trying to hold them to a higher standard than maybe they've tried to hold themselves to before. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've seen Mike take a big step. And I think because of that, I don't think there's any shock that there's a correlation to the second half of the season. He's really elevated his level of play. Man, great question. I definitely think we'll improve our depth. Having a lot of the guys currently on the roster back next year's big, but also having guys like McLaughlin and Walker and some other young guys come in, I think is big. You would always like to play guys, if you can, at right and left, not because Some guys are better on one side or the other, but if you could pick, it doesn't matter, one side for Walker, one side for McLaughlin, et cetera, just to let them rep over and over again, setting on the right side for 1, 2, 3, 4 years, you get better as opposed to having to flop back and forth. Sometimes you have to out of necessity, and some guys can do it better than others, but you'd certainly like them to hone in on one side and try to really develop their craft. Not as much because one side's the blind side like people think, just left and right, playing one side's good. Rivers is, to me, he can play tackle, but he could also play guard. And so to me, he's kind of almost like a guy. He's long enough and athletic enough to play tackle. He's big enough and strong enough and smart enough to play inside. So I don't know where Jalen will end up next year, but I do think he's got a great chance to be a big factor for us. We really think his future's bright, whether it's outside at tackle or inside. And then you asked about Zion. I mean, I think Zion has really cemented himself as just a really good football player this year. I think probably a combination of being thrown in the fire too early last year, taking a lot of his lumps. But, he learned a lot from it. He didn't lose confidence, which I think is a big thing. Really developed and changed his body over the offseason. Went from playing way too light around the 260s to over 300. He's really athletic. He's got good football instincts. He's been a guy since about the Florida State game for us this year that has really raised his level and probably been our most consistent performer up front. So having a guy like that back next year is big for us to hopefully show some of those young guys like Walker, McLaughlin, and Rivers, the right way to do things. I think it could help a lot. I think Mike's, like I said, like Cam, he's got to assess all the information and decide what's best for him. I know Coach Diaz is doing a good job with all our guys, but obviously it would help us. There's continuity. There's, like I said, he started to show some leadership and accountability in that room at a level that, we've got 3 young freshman receivers coming in that we think are going to be really good football players. We've got, as mentioned, 3 guys that were freshmen this year, and the longer they can be around veteran guys who start to understand, how to practice, how to prepare, how to carry themselves every day like a professional, and just have that maturity, I think is big. I think you look at a guy like Mike. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but he's got to be, being an older guy, he's got to be closing in on some all-time potential records here at a school like this, at a place like the U, to be able to do that. I think just personally would probably be a big deal. And then you never know how that enhances your stock and your opportunity to go to the next level. I think consistency is probably something that doesn't get talked about enough. And NFL teams, they're going to look for consistency. In other words, one guy can go have one great year, but guys that do it 1, 2, 3 years, even sometimes 4 years in a row. But if you can stack multiple productive years together, that shows a trend. And if you're drafting kids and you can have one guy who's had this one phenomenal year, but you've had another guy who's had 2 or maybe 3 really good, consistent years back to back, that consistency of performance usually isn't by accident. And so to me, if a guy like Mike decided he wanted to come back and had another good year, there's a lot of positives that can come from that. But ultimately, he'll make the decision that's best for him, and we'll support him either way. We have. I've talked about it with all my guys, as most of the coaches have. And, Nkosi, first of all, he loves the University of Miami. I think he's set to graduate at the end of the spring this year. For him, graduating from here would be a big deal. Be a big deal for his family, big deal for him personally. Also, I know, just the way this year's gone, Kosi's a junior that would be going into his final season, but now with just this season, he's actually got 2 years of eligibility left. And so that's something we just decided we were going to finish the season through Tuesday. He's preparing by the second play of the game, he's got to go in. And after Tuesday, we'll talk. And one thing, Kosi's made clear is he loves the University of Miami. He wants to be here. He also wants to play, and he should. And, I know Coach Diaz and I both, we want what's best for Nkosi. So that's like a lot of these conversations. I know it's not a stall deal to say after the game. It's simply, I think the guys want to focus in on playing this game. Once the game's over, then they kind of feel like the season's finally over and they have enough time to maybe take in all the information and options. And whatever that is, again, for Nkosi, we'll support him because we want what's best for him. He's done nothing but, represent the University of Miami with a lot of class since he's been here, including this season. Yeah, he's real tough. He's real durable. He played against Oklahoma 2 years ago, the first game of the year when he was at Houston. I think had some success running on those guys and showed some toughness like you're talking about in that game. He's done that all year this year. De'Eric's a unique player because he's going to kind of get his runs and carries sometimes without you really having to call design runs, whether he scrambles, whether he pulls his own read. Later in the year, we've had maybe a little more design runs than we did earlier in the year. For the same reason you said. I mean, even if he is a durable, tough kid, he's your quarterback. And, I would say more than half his carries this year have not been design runs. He just either the read lets him pull the football or he makes it happen on his own. But he does give you that ability, one, because he's really good at it, and two, to your point, I mean, he's a tough kid. And if you ask him, sometimes with quarterbacks you ask him and they're kind of hesitant. He's like, man, let's do whatever we got to do to win. And so I think that toughness is helped, be contagious with his teammates too. Elijah Arroyo is a kid that I got a relationship when I was at SMU in Dallas. He actually went to Frisco Independence High School just north of SMU, and so had a chance to, and actually knew his coaches very well. That actually was my recruiting area at SMU, and so that was all coincidental to the fact that he grew up in Pinecrest. I think he's got family that lives in Kendall, and so he kind of always growing up being a big Miami fan. On top of it, we had a relationship. We had success with a tight end at SMU, Colin Granson, who's going to the Senior Bowl this year, and then coming here and knowing about Brevin and Will and all those guys. It just ended up being a fit. We're really excited about him because I do think, to your question, I mean, he's he's 6'4", he's athletic. He plays like a receiver in a tight end's body in a lot of ways like Brevin does. Now, again, he's going to be a true freshman, but he's that style of player. Which is big for us. And Khalil Brantley is very versatile, obviously used to winning championships at Miami Northwestern. Very versatile too. Khalil's probably a little thicker, not as long, but he can play in the backfield as well. And then Larry Hodges is a guy that I think he's going to have a big offseason. In bowl practice this last couple of weeks, he's really having guys like Brevin and Will, I don't want to say he's in their shadow. You just don't get the opportunities. You got veteran guys. And what we've seen is he's got the ability to really catch the football at a high level. He's very athletic, was a very athletic, versatile player in high school. And if he could, have a really good offseason in the weight room, put on some weight, get a little stronger, his ball skills are definitely there to really, help us next year. And kind of for him, maybe make a big jump and earn a lot of playing time for us.